Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast episode. Today, I am joined by a very special guest, and his name is Bo. Bo, thank you so much for being here today with me and making the time for you.
Hey Gus, thank you so much for inviting me.
No problem, man. Would you mind giving the listener a small introduction of who you are, what you do, etc.?
Okay, so I'm a coach, or sometimes I rather call myself a guide, um, working more intuitively than structured coaching work. And my approach evolves over time, but right now I focus on helping entrepreneurs overcome their limiting beliefs, and maybe we'll touch on where I come from when it comes to the work I do, but it's basically rooted in working with emotions.
Gotcha. Thank you. I think you are dealing with some very interesting topics, especially a little bit more mindset related stuff. So, like emotions, anxiety, limiting beliefs, these things which we cannot directly see, but I think are truly important. So, as like a kickoff question, Bo, what got you into this space?
Mm. Well, I was in personal development for 10 years at the time, and I picked up a book called Letting Go by David Hawkins, and synchronistically, when I finished the book, there was a workshop happening in my city, and I was considering traveling to the US, but I realized that there was this workshop in my city, so I signed up and learned the releasing technique, or letting go. Some people call it like letting go, some people call it releasing, but it's basically the same, and it's working with the emotions. And maybe I should mention that I struggled with social anxiety most of my life up until that point, and I was able to appear confident, but internally I still very much struggled. Like every social interaction was draining me, and when I learned this technique and reconnected with my emotions, that really changed my life, and I found my purpose then.
Wow, that's awesome, man. I've also read this book, Letting Go, I think almost 2 years ago now. And yeah, it was really profound to learn about the deeper spectrum of emotions that we experience as humans. So, for people who don't know, the letting go technique is kind of like allowing emotions to come up and releasing them through like a practice. Let's just put it like that. So, is that one of the things which you also teach to clients, like the letting go technique?
Yes, it's one of the foundations that I build upon in my practice, and it's well, I did a facilitation training with the Sedona method, so that's how I got deeper into this technique. And there are advanced technique within it, but yeah, it's very simple actually. The basic technique is very simple.
Can you maybe describe it for people who don't know?
Yeah, so it's basically 4 questions. And the first one is, could you welcome the feeling? Then the next one is, could you let it go? Then, would you let it go? And this is like a prompt to, or a question whether you're willing to, because in reality it's a decision. And the last question is when, and this is like an invitation to do it now, but you don't have to, because because like many people hold on to, especially the negative emotions, and it sounds maybe not true, but when you dig deeper, it's usually like that.
Gotcha. So yeah, I've heard as well that work like this, emotional work, spiritual work, can be so powerful and profound if you do it alongside the work that you usually do. So another topic that you are also diving into is like limiting beliefs, right?
Yes.
So there's a lot of talk about limiting beliefs online. I'm sure you are familiar with that. Um, what kind of techniques or practices do you use or do you recommend for people if they want to overcome their limiting beliefs? Because I guess like a limiting belief is a belief that's not serving you. So just to get clear on what it means, a belief that's not serving you, like what do you do with that? How do you deal with it?
Yeah, limiting beliefs are often unconscious, or rather, most of the time they are unconscious. And so, first you have to discover what limiting beliefs you have, and usually, when you want to achieve something, but you know that something is holding you back, or you are efforting but still haven't achieved that thing, then you know that something is holding you back, and that's usually the limiting belief. And I didn't discover anything new. I use combination of techniques that I learned from my, let's say, mentors. And one of them was, although he's not alive anymore, was Nathaniel Brandon, and he wrote a book, actually many books on self-esteem, and he created a process to discover some unconscious thoughts or beliefs, and it's called sentence stem completion. And I use this specifically for discovering limiting beliefs, and then use the letting go or releasing to release the limiting beliefs. Because if the limiting beliefs is limiting you, then it's usually, or I should say always, fueled by some emotion. So let's say, for example, that you want to become a coach, something I struggled with myself, and you still can't get clients, and you know that there's something holding you back, and then you look at what you do and you realize, okay, I post daily, I write emails, but I don't talk to clients, and why is that? And then you discover that, okay, I don't feel good enough, I need one more certification. I need one, I need to read one more book. I need to, I don't know, fill in the blank. And when you look what's behind this, there's usually some emotion. And for me, it was shame, and it was fear. Actually, many kind of fears. And when you release those emotions, then basically the limiting belief loses its power.
I feel that's a very strong point. Like there's a very not obvious connection between energy and beliefs or thoughts. So as you said, like when you release some of this energy from these emotions, the limiting beliefs sometimes just disappear, you know? So it's very powerful to be able to be conscious of your beliefs, not just your limiting beliefs, but just be conscious of your beliefs and constantly try and see whether they're serving you or not. What are some of the beliefs that are common that you've seen among people?
I usually work with high achievers, and I'm a high achiever myself, and I'm not sure whether it's 100% of the time, but it looks like it. And the core belief is I'm not good enough. And whether it's someone who's really successful or someone who has many ideas but can't execute on them, it's always this one, and many other usually, but this one is really yeah, that's the one that probably every high achiever has.
Could you repeat it?
I'm not good enough.
Ah,
The
I've heard
belief
that before as well.
that it takes time to really dig deeper, and at the beginning when I work with someone there are other beliefs, but usually when we dig deeper, something like I'm not good enough or I don't deserve success, but I think that one also falls under the I'm not good enough. It usually rings true uh, for most people when we dig deeper. So yeah, that's probably the most common one.
Yeah, I feel like that's a powerful one. Like when you truly feel you are good enough, so let's say the opposite, when you feel you are good enough, it's like the world just transforms because now your thoughts become I'm good enough. Your actions are going to start resonating with those thoughts that you are good enough. And your reality is going to reflect it. So it's a very powerful belief. How do you go about transforming these beliefs? Like, do you use affirmations? I don't know, incantations? Do you write it down? Do you visualize? What are some of the things you do to transform those beliefs?
Mm. Well, as I mentioned, there's this process of first discovering the belief, then releasing the emotions that are attached to it, and then you set a goal, and there's a process for discovering whether you are somehow sabotaging yourself, and that is if you still after some weeks or months haven't achieved it, there's some more emotions attached. And yeah, so basically what I mentioned, the emotions. And I like that you mentioned energy, because I don't usually talk about energy now that much, but I had a teacher who is a tantric master, and
A
I like,
tantric?
yeah, tantra. Do you know tantra?
No, I don't know.
It's an Eastern philosophy from India, and it's very ancient. It's often associated with yoga, um, but um, there are many like neo-tantric schools in Europe and in the US, and I like the way he talked about these things, whether emotions or energy, because for some people it might sound woo-woo or too esoteric, but he always said that if you don't believe in that, then you can view it as like energy in your nervous system. And I resonate with this, that you can explain it like more spiritual, in a more spiritual way, or through the nervous system, because in reality the people that I work with and that feel they are not good enough, they're always at least up until this point have some trauma or wounding, and that leads to being in this dysregulated state. And when you release those emotions, often buried from childhood, like in my case and many others, then when you release the energy, then you are free to act.
That's a beautiful explanation, man. I like that. Um, so also another thing that I noticed on your profile, because for the people who don't know, we met through Twitter, through X, is anxiety. And I've seen you write about this quite a lot, and also some other people in the community that we are both a part of. Yeah, like anxiety, I feel like is such a big thing as well, especially among entrepreneurs and creators. Have you dealt with anxiety yourself in the past? Like on a big scale, you could say?
Yeah, anxiety. I struggled with social anxiety, and until I learned about this work with emotions, I wasn't aware. I just um, I just knew that something was, or thought that something was wrong with me, because I couldn't talk to strangers, and even at bigger gatherings, or even smaller gatherings, like in a group of friends, I would usually feel very tense, and I wouldn't say much. Even at family gatherings where there were more people, I wouldn't feel comfortable. So and I did exposure therapy, so I tried to force through that, but I always after some time I would feel drained, and I would need a lot of time to recharge. And when I first heard my mentor who said that I don't want to be seen, there was this real life interaction that I was about to approach some people as an exercise, and hold a conversation with strangers, and he noticed my body language and said that it looked like I didn't want to be seen. So I want to talk to those people, but subconsciously I was avoiding them, or I had some like emotional armor. And then when he told me that, it was like epiphany. And then I realized, oh wow, yeah, I'm so tense always in those interactions, and I learned to release or let go the emotions, especially the anxiety. And when I released the anxiety the first day of the workshop, the next day I think it was 90% gone. So I
Wow.
I still like had to push myself to talk to people, but I was not tense anymore. Yeah, I basically changed thanks to uh, letting go. So that's why I'm so why I'm such a fan of the technique. Well, that's why I use it myself, and that's why I teach it. So yeah.
That's a strong point, man. I'm really happy that you were able to transcend that. I feel that's like something that many people struggle with. To be honest, when I was younger, I wouldn't say I had like really bad anxiety, but I did feel like resistance towards speaking to new people, socializing, stuff like that, especially in like school. And I feel that when things really changed for me was when I started being like a lot more relaxed. So, like you said, people can kind of sense as well the state that you're in. So, if you're in a very nervous, anxious state and you're going to approach people, they are going to become uncomfortable because you are uncomfortable. But if you are comfortable, if you are relaxed, then approaching people, speaking to them, socializing becomes easier for you, but also other people are more at ease. So yeah, I think that social anxiety, if you're able to transcend that, it can be hugely powerful. And it can teach you a lot about like life as well. Because I just said like if you're able to be comfortable, other people will be comfortable. It becomes easier for everyone. So that's kind of awesome. Um, you mentioned as well a little bit before the Sedona method. Is what is the difference between the letting go method and the Sedona method?
Okay, so I first read Letting Go by David Hawkins, and then discovered the Sedona method. And for me, Letting Go was more like just an introduction, and the book, the Sedona method, and then the course and the facilitation training that I did later. But especially the book in the beginning was more in depth. It also delved, or it explains consciousness, or maybe it touches on non-duality. In the advanced courses, you go deeper into like realizing that you are not just your mind and not even your body, but there are many techniques within the Sedona method, not just the basic for releasing questions I mentioned in the beginning of this conversation, but there are then what they call the 4 basic wants, and those are wanting control, security, separation, and oneness. And they are like the core drivers behind our
Could you repeat those drivers?
those 4 wants are the drivers behind our actions, basically.
Which four ones?
Wanting control, security, approval, and oneness.
Oh, as in oneness, as in what do you mean with that?
Well, that one is, I think, not very easy to understand for people who didn't go very deep in like the spiritual work, but it's to be one with the all, with the whole universe, with everyone. And in the beginning, you can use it within when you are let's say you are working on some specific problem or limiting belief, and you often find that you do things to get approval from people, and you also want to like be closer or to belong to some group. So that's also like oneness basically, but in the bigger picture it's like oneness with everything, with the whole universe.
And that's like a part of our core drivers.
Yes, yeah, it
Wow,
is.
that's so interesting. That such a spiritual concept is probably unconsciously what part of our driving forces. That's hugely powerful. Awesome, man. Yeah, so the next thing I kind of wanted to touch on was something which I also saw in your bio, which was regarding overthinking. So this is something that probably all of us face at some point. It's just like being in our head too much. And to be honest, myself lately quite a lot. So, Bo, can you give like some can you just touch on the topic of overthinking? Like, perhaps have you faced it before? Like, what does it look like? Have you overcome it? How did you? What kind of things do you do to get rid of it? Essentially.
Yeah, of course I struggled with overthinking. That's how I know what works, or that's why I help people with it myself. And it's like a never-ending work. You still overthink sometimes, but you have some tools that you can use later that will help you to stop the overthinking. But essentially, when you overthink something, there's usually some emotion behind it that you're avoiding, and usually there's a combination, but fear, there's very often fear, shame, guilt. So these emotions you are avoiding cause you to overthink instead of just doing the thing. And what helps is to become aware of the emotion that you are trying to avoid, and you can do this either again through the basic questions in letting go or Sedona method, but you can also use somatic approach. I also like Alexander Loven's bioenergetics work. So he uses breath and grounding and some simple exercises that you can get into your body and become aware of the emotions. Also, Peter Levine, I love his work as well. So there are many different techniques you can use to become aware of your emotions, but I do like somatic therapy, and then when you become aware why you are avoiding the emotion, and when you release the emotion, then usually you are free to act and stop. And also, like when you get from your head to into your body, the overthinking usually stops. So that's why even exercise is good for overcoming overthinking. or just walking somewhere, and yeah.
Yeah, I think those are two very powerful things you mentioned. Getting into the body is super essential. I find myself as well that like exercise helps a ton for that. Also, meditation helps for that. Guided meditation or not, just both of them. And one thing which I also would like to add on to that is personally the kind of framework I have learned for dealing with overthinking is just action. So I do a lot of writing, and whenever I'm thinking too much about what I'm writing or what I'm like specifically going to write, usually how I solve it is just by writing, you know? So actually taking the action. That's perhaps people something that people can also use to overcome or deal with overthinking is just start acting. This is also why just doing something, if you are so much in your head, just doing any activity, it can be cleaning, it can be, yeah, like you said, walking, it can be writing, it can be journaling, just anything that gets you out of your head and into action usually makes you feel better. So that's something what people can also use to deal with overthinking. And I think all of us at some point do. Like, unless you are pretty much an enlightened, super aware being, um, you deal with thoughts all the time, pleasant or not. And it's an important skill to be able to notice the overthinking and like deal with it when it comes up. So yeah, I think that's a very powerful point, Bo, you mentioned there. Um, let's do a little bit of a change of topic. Bo, you're also a family man, as we talked about last time. I am not like I don't have kids for people who are curious, um, but I would love to perhaps get a little bit of wisdom from you or a little bit of insight about parenting because yeah, it's something which I haven't really paid attention to, like or haven't really learned about yet. And since we talked about it last time a little bit, I would love to know if there's like particular things that you want to share about it.
Yeah, parenting. Um, I'm really glad that I learned to regulate myself, um, to learn that I learned all the um, techniques that I did and about the personal development in general, because when you and I should maybe mention that I have a 1-year-old and a newborn, so two very small kids. They need very much attention. Like basically, I don't have any free time at all, and as someone who felt I didn't feel free most of my life because my social anxiety was holding me back, and I finally felt that I'm free, and now I have kids, and now I feel like I'm back where I was to some degree, but in another way. But when you are in this state that you want to do something, but you have responsibility for your kids, and you are tired because you don't sleep that much, because they wake up every 20 minutes in the night, so during the night, so sometimes you don't get to sleep much, then your nervous system is dysregulated, and you can very easily become angry, irritated, frustrated, and despite me working with the emotions, I caught myself being very angry, and I can imagine how easy it is to be hard on your kids. And I mean, even physically, like if people grew up in an environment where their parents beat them, and now you have to go to work and you come home and you are tired and you don't sleep because your child wakes up every 20 minutes, then yeah, it's very difficult. So this parenting thing is for me another letting go practice, and also this is personal development, personal growth on steroids, because everything you learned you can put to practice in parenting. So I'm still learning. It's still kind of new to me. I have only I've been a father for less than 2 years, so I'm trying to be the best father I can. But I would recommend everyone to either learn about nervous system and regulating your emotions, or specifically with the releasing that is very effective at this. So yeah, that's what I have to say about parenting. But another thing, it's very beautiful. It's like despite it being very hard and difficult, it was, when my first son was born, it was probably the best day of my life. So
Wow.
it and when I overcome a social anxiety, that was like a big change. I learned to express my emotions, but when my son was born, and even now, like every day, I'm getting better at feeling feeling gratefulness and feeling love for my kids, but for everyone, all humanity in general. I think my kids make me a better person.
Wow, that's such an amazing message, Bo. Thank you for sharing that. Is this like a topic that you have spent time learning in? So, like, have you read books about it or watched videos on it?
When it comes to parenting, I've only read 3 or 4 books, and I've watched some videos, but my wife is a kindergarten teacher, and she
Oh,
also
that helps.
and she studied developmental psychology, so she knows a lot about kids. So thanks to her, I know probably more than the average person.
Probably step one would be to find yourself a woman like that.
Yeah.
Amazing, man. So, like, what are some of the things you've learned from these books? Because, like, I haven't read any books, so, like, 4 sounds like a lot to me.
Um, well, most people probably don't know, but um, children can hear your voice even when they are in the womb. So they really pick up when you are angry or happy, the emotions before they are born. Even like the embryo can, and it's also confirmed by science now that when the mother is stressed, the development is not ideal. So I talked to my son while he was still in the womb, And I also learned that how important is contact, skin to skin contact with parents, and that's why we practice attachment parenting. So we carry our kids in the carrier, and they got so used to it they don't even sleep in the bed during the day. They only sleep in the carrier. Thankfully, during the night they sleep in their bed, but they spend a lot of time in contact with us. So that was something that I didn't know before I become a parent. Yeah, that's about it.
I feel that's an interesting point you made there, like attachment therapy. I feel like that's something which is should be part of like every child's upbringing, is like the physical contact. I don't know, for some reason that just stands out to me, like as being someone important. And I also haven't heard of it, like attachment therapy. It was like a new term for me when you first brought it up. So that was quite interesting. Um, what are some perhaps things that you would like pass over to your kids? Because like we've obviously talked a lot today about emotional regulation, anxiety, overthinking, and I feel like having this knowledge is super powerful, and also being able to give it to your kids as soon as possible is powerful. Like, is that something that you are already thinking about? Like, what kind of information you're going to pass forward to them, or like how you're going to uh, what kind of values you're going to pass over? I don't know if it makes sense, but just trying to see if I can find some angles.
Yeah, I think about it a lot, and I think they really learn more by observing than by the words you say. So um, if you say one thing and do another thing, let's say when I was really stressed, I used to eat a lot of chocolate and sweets, and told my son that he shouldn't eat it, but he saw me eating it, so that was not a good example. So it doesn't work when you say that he shouldn't eat it and you did it yourself. So lead by example. That's something that I also want to teach them, but also definitely all the like regulation techniques. Even now, I sometimes breathe slowly to calm my children down, and they can pick up my breath and how I calm myself down, and it calms them down. So this is something that I want to teach them. Like at this age, it's more like they just copy my breathing, but I think from the age of 3 or so, you can really teach them to regulate themselves, at least partially. So, and I want to teach them to express themselves, to not hide anything from me, and for that, of course, I need to create a safe space for them, but that's what I want them to know, that they can express themselves. And of course, I'd like them to be smart and read books. We don't have a TV. We only have a big library, big shelves with books in our living room, so um, I think they will read a lot. And I haven't really thought about it, so that was a question that kind of caught me off guard, but a good
Yeah,
question.
it was interesting to hear about those things. Like, it's something that's not yet in my scope, as I said, but I do love hearing about these new topics. And I feel like one thing you mentioned there is like you have a bookshelf instead of a TV, or like in your living room. I think the environment that you put a child in when it grows up is also significant. So, like, if your child grows up around iPads and iPhones, they're going to have a completely different life than if you have a child grow up around books. You know, like when you think about it, it's honestly crazy. Like, especially in this day and age, like what I'm seeing personally is kids are growing up with technology, like sooner and sooner than before. And I feel like that could have a pretty big impact on society, even in like over a long time span. Because if a lot of people start growing up with technology, then eventually the masses, which is what most of the world comprises of, are going to have these effects from growing up from technology. And I don't know if it's always beneficial. Sometimes it is probably beneficial because children, they learn to use technology. So you see, for example, people that are really young, that are really skilled with technology already. So that's, I guess, like the positive side. But then obviously the negatives, like the attention spans, I don't know, like screen time, stuff like this, which is not so nice. So yeah, I feel like perhaps one thing is like being conscious of what environment you let your child grow up in. And yeah, it seems like you have a pretty dialed uh, environment for that. So that's awesome. Um, yeah, that's really great. Well, I guess Bo, you are obviously a coach, right? So I also have done some coaching in the past, and I'm actually looking at doing coaching again. In that type of space, um, what have you experienced as a coach, and what have you seen work as a coach lately online? Because you do coaching through X, right?
Yeah, that's where people can find me most easily. And what I've seen, could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. So, um, what kind of coaching do you do for people?
Okay, yeah. As I mentioned in the beginning, it kind of evolves, and I started working with men who struggle with dating, and now I'm more focused on entrepreneurs who struggle with limiting beliefs, but I found that it's actually very similar because the root cause of this, whether it's the struggles in dating or the struggles with execution in your business, it's really the emotions that hold you back and the limiting beliefs you have. So yeah, it's like I know that what I do works, and it's just doing with or working with people on topics I resonate at a certain point in time. And I'm not sure what I will be doing in 3 years, but right now it's helping entrepreneurs overcome limiting beliefs but the work with emotions, it's such a huge topic for me.
I feel like that's probably one of the main topics of today. Is just like emotions. So maybe like as a bit of a wrap up, what kind of practical takeaways do you have for people that are like new to emotions? Like what are the practices that people can actually start doing to deal better with their emotions, to understand the root of their emotions, to transcend them?
The best practice is probably to be curious, to just recognize what you are feeling, and instead of avoiding the emotions or suppressing, just notice. And you will discover that when you face even the fear or the anxiety, it doesn't have any power over you, and it will actually lose the power. It will dissolve. So it's very simple, actually. It's very simple, but we somehow, not all people, but the kind of people I work with who are similar to me, we complicate it, and it's really just notice. That's where you should start.
That's
And
very powerful, yeah.
yeah, and then there are many like techniques you can use, whether it's somatic therapy or CBT or some other approaches, but this is really, even meditation helps. You can just stop your mind, get into your body, and notice.
Notice. That's the main key word. Awesome. Thank you, Bo, for making the time for you today on this podcast. I really enjoyed today's podcast. We covered quite a broad range of topics, mainly about emotions, about mindset, limiting beliefs, but also parenting, which I think could be interesting for people to kind of see a nuance between these topics. So I guess like one question which I ask people sometimes is, what kind of advice would you have for your younger self? So Bo, who is maybe like a couple of years younger, what kind of advice would you give to him, knowing what you know now?
Ooh. I actually thought about it, and it changes over time. But right now, I would tell him to be more self-accepting. That's what I would say to my younger self, and probably would explain him how to do it. To yeah,
give him coaching.
Yeah, give him some coaching.
Awesome, man. Great. Well, thank you so much, Bo. I'll make sure to link your social profiles in the description of this podcast. For people who are watching on YouTube, you will be finding it in the YouTube description, and Spotify, you'll be finding it in the Spotify description. Thank you, Bo, for being here today with me. I hope you, listener, enjoyed the podcast as well, and looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.